Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 23rd day of April, 2019. Well, 23 has a numerology of 5 or change, so yesterday was the cosmic builder. So what did we build that then changed something? I have a friend on Twitter that retweeted this video yesterday's video, and said it was a good one for Earth Day. And I guess the whole thing about that we're sort of living in an illusion, that we think that we're doing okay, that climate change is real, and I kind of leave these readings open-ended so that there could be any number of focuses to any of them. And so what she did is she took it in the direction of Earth Day and climate change and healing the planet and all of that. And I just thought that was delightful. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Just gives another perspective, looking at it from just another angle, and it couldn't be a better one, really, could it? So hopefully yesterday on Earth Day you got out and you did some things and you had fun, and I planted things. I pulled the old stuff out, and I planted my peas. Today I'm going to finish out there at the dome, and I'm going to probably do the sweet peas on the outside of the dome. I did just regular, eating peas on the inside, and I moved some celery around. I never pull everything out of the garden at the end of the season. I just leave it, and that way the little critters during the winter have something to do, have a little bit of food and whatnot, and a little bit of shelter. So I always have to do it this time of year, and I don't know, my Swiss chard's coming back, my kale's coming back, my the celery's coming back. I never take it out. And the bronze fennel's coming back. And usually, you harvest all that stuff, but I don't. In fact, I don't harvest the fennel for the bulb. I only harvest the seed off of it. So my bronze fennel just stays there. Wherever I have it planted, it just stays, and I just go and harvest the seed. And, it's a really, fennel tea, if you want to take and say even like a teaspoon full maybe, and you could blend it with any of the mints or chamomile or anything that's digestive oriented. And so if you have an upset stomach, if you have some digestive complaints, fennel seed is wonderful. You do want to take though and either set it on a spoon and put another spoon and kind of crush a little bit, kind of bruise the outside just to release the oils, basically, is what you're doing. You don't have to powder it or anything like that. I'm not saying do that. Just kind of, or if you have a mortar and pestle, just throw it in and kind of punch it a little bit, just strike it just a little bit, and then stick it in your infuser, your tea infuser. And with any other herbs you want to put in, like I said, any of the mints or chamomile or anything. Marshmallow leaf is also good. If you have an upset stomach, you ate something you shouldn't have, or too many things that are too different, or too many Franken foods. I have to have it when I drink coffee. I don't know. Coffee's never been my drink to begin with, and my husband makes me these coffees that have stuff in it, So basically, you get all of the calories in one thing of coffee for like the entire week. So it wreaks havoc on my stomach. So as good as they are, I just can't do it. So anyway, I keep the fennel around just in case. And I have a digestive tea blend that I made, and I do a little of both, and then I'm fine, but this seems kind of counterproductive to hurt your body and then go fix it just for the sake of, taste or something. I don't know. But anyway, let's get started and see what we have for today. If this is your first time here, welcome. Ultimately, I'm going to draw 3 cards, but I'm going to do them randomly. If you've been here before, then you've been through this. You know what I do. Sometimes I rant, sometimes I drop cards like I almost did there. Just depends on what's going on. But since the guy in the Oval did like, what was it, over 50 tweets in 24 hours time, I don't think you need anything from me. I have him blocked, so I actually don't get to see them. So that's good. It's a blessing. It's something I urge all empaths to do. If you're on social media, block freely. Don't think twice. Don't think you're going to offend somebody. This really is about the energy coming from the computer, because trust me, it doesn't make any difference. Intention is intention. And if you've got somebody who's being nasty online to you, that's an intention. Okay. And there's no reason for any of us to have to deal with it. So whether you're empath or not, really just block freely. You don't need that misery. You really don't. But particularly if you're an empath, do it. Don't even think twice. Just do it. Just block them. You don't need it. You don't need that intention coming to you. You don't need to even be looking at it or acknowledging it, because you don't need to build a channel to it, because that's the next thing that happens. So don't do that. Just block them and get them out of your line of sight. Don't even see them. It's what's helped. It does. It's really helped me, especially blocking the, what's his name. That really helped me. So anyhow, let's count 13 and see what our first card is. Oh, well, the Four of Wands. We see the castle in the background. There's an arch. There's like an arched bridge right there. Off to the couple's left, you can see it there. If I get too much glare on it, it just looks like a rock, but it's not. You see the four poles there and the crossed garlands above them. They're holding their hands high with bouquets of likely flowers, although you can't hardly see it. Maybe they're just gotten married, or they're celebrating something, though. We've got you kind of have a doorway here as well. All right, let me set this one. I'll set the deck down. I need both hands here. See, you've got basically a doorway. Both sides, and the idea of pillars in tarot is a big thing. You'll see pillars, you'll see two trees, you'll see maybe two mountains that and you can see a pathway between. But the idea behind this is that it's a doorway into balanced energy exchange. Now, if you think in terms, and I've said this before, and I don't know that necessarily runes, the Elder Futhark, was even considered when these cards were being painted. But what you see above there is the garland is in an X pattern. And so what you're looking at there is balanced energy exchange. It's the same energy found in Gebo, which drawn is an X. And so what we're looking there at is a sense of balanced energy exchange, but it's about moving into the future as well, isn't it? It represents our structure, our foundation, and it's suggesting that, wands, which is what this is, it's a suit of wands. We're seeing staffs, of course, but they call those wands. But that's the fire element. And so we're talking about our will and how we manifest going forward. So how is this couple going to manifest their lives together? Well, they're going to do it in balanced energy exchange, aren't they? They're going to live life in balance with each other. Not necessarily always agreeing. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be a 50-50 thing necessarily all of the time, but just the acknowledgement that, there is another person in the mix is a really helpful thing in relationships, I think. We've all seen relationships and maybe even experienced them where it just seems one holds all the power, one decides everything. I remember this one couple that I became acquainted with, and she didn't speak. She just didn't speak. I didn't know her name for years. It was so-and-so's old lady. Well, first of all, I come from the time where, I was alive during the time when all of a sudden we started referring to our parents and to our spouses as old man and old lady. I never did. I never referred to my parents that way. My husband did, and I corrected him immediately. I said, "Oh, no, 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 we won't be doing that." And so I said, "I'm not comfortable with that." It's like I had a boyfriend in college who used to call his parents by their first name. It's like, are you kidding? They're your parents. Have some respect. Seriously. But but uh, but this guy, we didn't know her name. And then one day she was at our home and found out what her name was, and she started talking, and she never stopped. So I don't know what happened in terms of the balance of their relationship, but all of a sudden she came alive. Now, he wasn't a very good guy or anything. I'm going to tell you that. He really wasn't. Um, in fact, he was a bit of a jerk. So I understand. So something clearly happened, though, to change that dynamic. But that was their foundation. That was their structure. And I just thought it was so odd, to think that you could treat somebody like that. But they do. Some of it is this was not a religious based relationship or anything. So it wasn't like it was, some patriarchal thing, that was religious based, although it was definitely patriarchal. Because if we weren't permitted to know her name, if she was simply an item, a possession, well, you know. But that's not what's happening here. It's suggesting that we have a balanced structure here, a balanced foundation as we move into some kind of new unified experience. Let's do another card. Because yesterday we started out positive, and then all of a sudden, well, we moved right into breaking through illusion, and it's like, oh my goodness, that was the good card was the illusion. It's like we've been living in an illusion, and now we need to wake up and realize that we can't live that way anymore. So anyway, so we have a 4, and now we have a 15, which is a 6. So 6 and 4 is 10. So again, we have the theme of new beginnings, also the theme of change with the 23, but we have the devil. So here we're basically a slave to desire. You see him acknowledging the idea too of as above, so below, but he's almost defiant about it, with his it's almost like and I need to look at this just to be sure. So let me use my magnifying glass. Yeah. Okay. So he's holding a torch. You see, well, I know they're going to say this is a grape leaf on his tail and grapes themselves on hers. But I'm sorry, it just looks like an oak leaf. And I know I can't get off that, can I? It's a thing with me, isn't it? It's just that every time I see grapes and the leaves surrounding them, they look like oak leaves to me. I grow grapes. They don't. Okay, I'm not going to do this again. I do this every time. I just should do a disclaimer, maybe like a crawler on the bottom of the screen if I could figure out how to do that. It's like, okay, she's going to go into it now. Just she's not going to do it again. She's just going to, say, okay, it's the grape and leaf issue again. So anyhow. But basically, he's lighting his torch is held downward, and the light from the torch, the fire from the torch is pointed downward. That was my whole point of it anyway, of looking. And then I had to go and see the grape tail and the leaf tail. But you can see the devil, he's got the wings, and he's perched upon a pedestal there, and which is what we tend to do when ego takes focus, doesn't it? We tend to stand on our pedestals, and we don't want to get knocked off of it, do we? Because of course our ego is the most important thing. But here you have an expression of polarity with the man and the woman, because you're looking at the masculine and feminine within. But it's interesting about the torch, holding it downward. You know, he is doing as above, so below, similar to the magician, okay? But at the same time, the emphasis is on the below, isn't it? And so the emphasis is on ego. And here again, you know, we're looking at being a slave to our desires, aren't we? So not in balanced energy exchange. So let's keep going here. So maybe whatever struggles we're going to have, I mean, you're looking at a similar thing here, where you're looking at polarity. So either polarity between one another and how we, you know, have a balanced relationship between one another, or it could simply be the balance within and the struggle, you know, that we deal with when we're looking at, you know, masculine and feminine or projective and receptive energies. Sometimes, you know, we get maybe a more Mars focus. Today's a Mars energy. It's a Tuesday. So, you know, maybe today we want to make sure that we have, you know, maybe a little intellect, maybe a little emotion to sort of balance out the will so that we don't get ahead of ourselves. You know, the emotion will be like, uh-oh, maybe that gut feeling of, uh-oh, let's not do that. Intuition saying, don't do that. Don't go that way. And intellect going, and reason saying, you know, it would make more sense if, you know, let's do this, offering another suggestion. So we keep that motivating process going, you know, that clearly is happening here. We, you know, we have the energy of new beginnings. We have the energy of change. Let's do another card though. So again, you know, you never know when you draw that first card, it might set the tone for the whole reading, but it might just be a beginning point, you know, and you really have no idea where you're going. Well, except I'm going to throw a card on the floor. Excuse me. There we go. Well, that was the Nine of Pentacles that I threw on the floor. So keep that in mind in case I draw a fourth card. I did draw the Queen of Cups. So the queens in the decks are really the power in the tarot, I believe. I know some people may say, oh no, it's the Emperor and it's the Kings and all of that. Well, no, it isn't. In form, goddess rules, no matter what the god thinks. Actually, there's only all that is, but in here, you know, when we're in form, we have to look at things in terms of polarity. That was the gift given us, evidently. So, but I love the queens in any deck. But in this one, you know, you see the water behind her. She's, in fact, at the water's edge. It's almost like her robe or her cape there has kind of a scaly or fishy feel to it. And this is not the one where her feet are scaly. That's another one. But you can see the cherub down there, right here. Did I do that right? I'm doing this behind and reversed. Right here is the cherub. Cups is about the water element, and so about love and emotion and intuition. And I was going to do this and I forgot. And I'll try to remember to, in fact, I'll go do this after I'm done. I'll go try to find that that deck that I bought. I haven't had it very long, just a couple of years. I don't use it. I bought it because I just wanted to see what it was like. But it was done by an Italian designer, I guess, and it's the Lo Scarabeo. Something. I have to look. Anyhow, it's a really cool deck. But the chalices, the cups, use ornate chalices like this, and so it's really cool. But here's the thing: the major cards, they're all it's all about Rome and all about warriors. It doesn't even remotely look like anything. It's Alexander the Great and all of the generals, and so it's really difficult to relate to. And so mostly I just got it because I wanted to see what it was like, because I thought it was really cool. And I'm related to Alexander the Great, so it just seemed like something. Well, okay, there's an ancestor, and I had just bought one. The Dieste family. there's at one point there's a couple, a husband and a wife within that in the Dieste family that and when they got married, I forget the other family they married into. I'm actually related to both of them. And when I saw that, I looked it up in the ancestry because it seemed familiar. When I saw that it was coming out, the name was familiar. And so I went and I looked up these people and I expanded that section and found them. And so I had to buy that one too. And what had happened is that he commissioned the king, essentially commissioned, or the Lord, I don't remember what they were, but he commissioned this as an anniversary gift on their 10th anniversary for his wife. And it's interesting. The small cards, the minor arcana, there's really aren't any pictures that tell a story or anything. But the other ones are primarily of this couple. The majors are of this couple, although the Pope is in there, and I think it's Il Papa or whatever. And I mean, it's a really interesting deck. But again, I bought it because of the familial relationship to it, just as I did the other one. But the other one I don't use. I don't even use the other one. It's just I just have them. But that other one, at least the one from the Dieste family, I can at least relate to that. I can do a reading with it. But that other one, I don't know. It's very, very targeted to one particular idea, and it just escapes me. So I can't do that one. But anyhow, I'll find it though, and I'll show you some examples of it, and you can see what I'm talking about. How it's like, well, what the heck has that got to do with anything? And I looked. I mean, I researched it. I can't make heads or tails out of it. So anyhow, I don't use it. But anyhow, the Queen of Cups, you're dealing here with either an older woman of authority, or you're dealing with someone who's benevolent and kind and intuitive and a natural witch. So what does that then have to do with the Four of Wands and the Devil? I think in order to have a successful relationship with people, we have to, or even within, we have to find a way to acknowledge the other as a welcome part of our lives, as an essential part of our lives. When you get married, you're saying to that other person, you're essential. I don't want to live my life without you. The devil comes in, and we're basically trying to figure out a way. Now, how do I do that? How do I live with myself? How do I live with someone else in a way that respects the other, acknowledges the other? Whether it's, you're trying to make sense of it internally, you're basically acknowledging and blessing the dark and light within, and realizing that if you don't have a little bit of guidance, you may not make it. And so, there's a little bit of guidance available. The devil does mention it. Well, let's see. I touched something with my card here on this keyboard. Anyhow, but you can see he's pointing a little bit up there, even though he's lighting the way to ego. He's still like half-heartedly saying, "Hey, yeah, it's up there." The light of spirit, even though he would prefer the light of ego. But enter the Queen, and she's suggesting that, benevolence involves more than just the self. Benevolence and learning to extend love and harmony and joy and all of that to other people, you have to be able to acknowledge that other person as worthwhile, and to understand that everything is one energy. And so to differentiate that way between, that like the devil would like us to do, the devil within, the ego within, calls for separation, it calls for differentiation, it calls for seeing the other, and that isn't what we want to do. Not if we wish to have this was depicted here as our foundation. And it would be awesome if in fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to do a fourth card. I'm going to go ahead and go to the rune. Wouldn't it be great if I drew Gebo? Because it's really about living in harmony and balanced energy exchange with other people. It's about living in justice and having the light of truth and the light of spirit shine all the time. Yesterday was about abandoning illusion and not getting caught up in that anymore, realizing that maybe we've been duped into thinking that, we're all fine here. Well, yesterday suggested maybe we weren't. Maybe we need to wake up a little bit. And here we have Ingwas or Ingus, however you wish to pronounce it. Sometimes this is drawn with two X's as like a DNA strand. And so there you have, in a sense, the balanced energy of Gebo contained within Ingwas. This particular rendition of it, though, I like it better. Um, Although the other is quite meaningful, really. I mean, because you're talking about genetic inheritance here, but it's also talking about the seed. Ingwas is the seed or sudden expansion from within. And so basically, when you're talking about change, sometimes change is manifested very suddenly. A sudden realization, or just something suddenly happens in our lives and to upend things. And now all of a sudden we have to go in a different direction, whether we want to or not. But if we want the sudden energy for expansion, it's got to be done in a way that is balanced, in a way that acknowledges the input of other people. The other thing, if you're looking at it from the standpoint of from within, if this is a struggle, within of trying to figure out, maybe I'm too, or maybe I'm not forceful enough. Maybe I don't stand up for myself. Maybe I just let others, make those decisions for me. And again, like this woman I was telling you all about. One day she woke up and she just decided, I have a voice. I'm going to use it. I don't care. I'm just going to say what I have to say. I found over time, over the coming years, that this man actually backed down in the face of a woman standing up, because I did several times stand up to him and he did back down. So I don't know. Maybe something happened in their life together that she finally just decided enough was enough. And she tried it and it worked. And then after that, everything changed. I think that if that's going on, then your voice has to be loud. Sometimes it has to be loud. Sometimes, when we were all learning assertiveness training in college, look, when I was in college, that was when the book "I'm Okay, You're Okay" came out, and the whole branch of psychology. I was getting a degree in psychology, and I was not a transactional analysis person, but that was a whole new branch of psychology, and where everything was a transaction between people. We weren't just having a conversation. We were just talking to one another, right? We're having a transaction. So then we're going to discuss how the transaction went and all this other crap, I'm just shaking my head. And I mean, I talked to these ladies that were these other women that were in grad program there. I was undergrad, and I'd talk to these graduate students, and they'd be like, well, it would be all this transactional analysis speak, and I'd just be looking at them like, what? And I knew what they were talking about, but I play dumb because I just don't want to engage in that. I just want to have a normal conversation with somebody, If you get in my face about something, you say something I don't like, maybe I'll just call you out on it, but I'm not going to sit and analyze and with under. Oh well, anyway, it was stupid. It was just stupid. But I think he's the same guy that wrote Silence of the Lambs, so I don't know. I have no idea. I'm looking at the name, and I went and I found, and I think I went and I looked, and sure enough, I think it's the same guy that wrote "I'm Okay, You're Okay." It's like, are you? Are you really? If you can write that, are you really okay? But anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm going to have to go look again to see if it was the same guy that wrote it. Thomas Harris, I believe his name was. But yeah, it's anyhow. I don't know why I got off on that, but basically, when you're dealing with Ingwas, I'll get back to the rune here, which is what I should be talking about. You're talking about. I think that we're finally coming to the point that we realize that if we don't do this together, whatever this is, whatever we're involved in the moment, whether it's the greater picture happening in our country right now, which is on everyone's minds. Well, I suppose it's not on everyone's minds. Some people just don't care about it. they got more important things to worry about, and they evidently haven't made the connection yet. It hasn't hit home yet that this is actually probably causing a lot of all their concerns, but maybe they just don't have time to look at it. They're just too busy dealing with all of it. So it could simply be that, and not that they've not made the connection. So that's probably not a fair statement. But I'm sure they're making the connection, real well now. But how do we manifest? When you look at Ingwas, that's actually the 22nd rune of the Elder Futhark. So again, the cosmic builder. How do we manifest? If you think about it from the standpoint of the sudden expansion of energy, what if someone's not pulling their own weight? What if the sudden expansion of energy is too much? What if it's too authoritarian? What if you don't have the balance of the receptive side of self, one that's compassionate, one that can maybe see the bigger picture? You have to realize the difference between men and women. And I realize this again is probably not completely fair, but if you look at it from the standpoint of men rushing into battle and women, standing back and going, what's going on? Kind of taking in the whole picture. Now, it's typically how the relationship is. The women stand back and the men rush in. Well, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. If you look at it from the standpoint of simple energy, we have projective energy where we need to get out there and do something or manifest something or respond to something. And then we have receptive energy where we need to sit back and maybe take a better look at things before we, maybe sit back and look around first before we respond. So you can see where in the sudden expansion of the total picture, right, of all energy interacting at the same time and expanding at the same time, if you've got one side of self that isn't functioning properly, that isn't functioning in their own sense of power, then maybe you have too much energy in that sudden expansion of energy. Or maybe if that's not as powerful in you, maybe the receptive side isn't as effective when it's manifesting. So you can see where for the right response in life, you need to have a balance of both projective and receptive of aspects of self. Those vibrations within have to be in some kind of balance, where the supportive side or the receptive side, might be there because we need a little more oomph out there, a little more projective energy out there to get something done. But you've got the receptive side of self right there with it, supporting it, and kind of nudging and kind of, saying, well, tweaking a little bit as it goes. Okay, maybe let's pull it back a little bit. Maybe we're being a little too forceful. So it's going to be mindful of what's going on and the reactions of others, while the other side, the projective side of self, is going to be out there doing what it needs to be doing. But the bottom line is it's not going to get anywhere if it's not done in some kind of balance or some kind of integrated fashion. And that's what I mean by balance. Don't get caught up in the whole notion of balance being 50-50, because it isn't always so. Sometimes, we're not going to see it. Sometimes it's like this, but it doesn't mean it's not there. Okay? It doesn't mean that the balance is not struck in a way that actually gets something done. And so I guess that's interesting. So that since it's sort of bringing in the 22, though, maybe we need to think in terms of yesterday as well. And yesterday was about letting go of illusion and seeing what's really in front of us. And so maybe we've done that. And now we're ready to manifest, from the standpoint of integration and balance as our foundation, instead of having the illusion be our foundation before. You go along and you don't realize. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm really in the dark here and I didn't know these things were happening. I was recently involved in a situation where I was pretty much the only one who understood what was going on. The rest of the folks involved really didn't. And sometimes that's not very well received, but at the same time, you don't really have a choice. You have to say something. Otherwise, everybody remains in the dark, and the person who can enlighten everybody isn't doing their job. And so sometimes it even turns out like that. But at the end of the day, it's better to know the truth than it is to not. And I think that was what was being said yesterday with the cards. I think that basically having higher self inform the picture when ego gets way too involved, sort of has to happen, I think. Sort of the parent coming in, the parent within, or the wise, the noble wise hierophant, or hermit, maybe is probably the hermit's the better one, who stands on the mountaintop and has the light of truth in his hand and with his lantern, uh, trying to shine the light of truth down on everything to try to see what's really going on. Um, and I think yesterday we realized that maybe it's time to pull our heads out of the sand and pay attention to that inner voice. And then today, see, then we end up with a better structure, don't we? A better foundation where we start balancing that and being aware, the Queen of Cups, to be aware that the risk involved with the ego dominating is just too great. And it's going to affect our ability to interact harmoniously and in an integrated fashion that helps us to manifest something positive. And that's where English comes in. I'm losing my voice. Well, groovy. So we'll have to remember Mondays and Tuesdays for tomorrow then, and see if we're actually going to have sort of a progression here this week. Sometimes we do. But it's almost like, yeah, we realized some really important things yesterday, and now we've got to figure out what we're going to do about it, how we're going to move forward together outside of the illusion, and how are we going to manifest something real going forward. Well, nice. All right. Well, I can't remember if I posted something yesterday on the blog or I didn't. Maybe I did. Or maybe it was just that human design thing the day before. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Well, today anyway, I'm going to do the Capricorn moon magic post. I'm going to put that up. I actually started it yesterday. Got everything ready. I'm going to go ahead and write that up today while I'm out there finishing cleaning up the rest of the outside of the dome so I can plant my sweet peas. So, okay, I guess that's it. I can't think of anything else to add here. Just trying to go through it in my head. Tuesday, Mars Day, change, 23. Okay, I think that's it. All right, well, cool. Then I guess thank you so much again for coming by, and we will see you tomorrow. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.